Like Dubai in August?
Worse.
Okay.
But when you're consigned to work in the blast furnace, and when those furnace doors open and molten iron comes pouring out at 1,000 degrees, the hair on your hand singes. I stood there on the first day. The second day I went and told my uncle, this is not a job for me. I'm going back. I'm going to try and get into an MBA program because working as an engineer is not going to pan out. I went back to Bombay, and with my friends we started applying to various universities in America, which was what it should be like. We got into a few universities, and then one day we went and we said, hey, why don't we write this Bajaj entrance exam? And as you know, 40,000 applications for 40 seats. We said, where the hell do we stand a chance to do this? I said, no, we'll go. The first part was the group discussion, which went pretty fine, no problem at all. The second part is they give you an hour to do a set of, I think, about 90 questions or 100 questions. Between this, there's a lunch break. So we went to a restaurant down on the corner. We had a few beers, a few more beers, and we came back to write the exam. So my friends were all around me, and the paper was put in front of us, and the guy timed it and said, you all can start now. So I looked at the first question, didn't even understand what it was all about. Second, third, and I flipped the pages. At about the fourth page, I said, hey, this I think I can do. So I started filling it up. My friend next to me said, what the hell do you know that you're writing so busily? So I said, you know what, I think I've got the trick in this. Turn the paper around, start answering it from the back. What they did in management school was they wanted to test your aptitude to handle a problem. Do you get bogged down? Or you say, look, let me handle a problem which I can tackle now and come back to the indefinite ones later. So all the easy questions were loaded at the end. The questions which did not even have an answer were loaded in the beginning. And we had people who had spent the whole 1 hour answering the first two questions, which had no answer.
Right.
My friend and I were first and second in that exam. And we got into Bajaj. Since we came from moderate circumstances, I didn't want to stretch my father's money by studying in America, so I got into Bajaj. And I think that was the best thing I ever did.
Great. So you actually cracked the code in terms of how to pass that exam.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that the same code in life? Because you do the heavy lifting up front.
Yes.
And once you've done that, once you've built your muscles, and then you can go and then do the easy stuff later.
You see, in life you're confronted with various problems. There are two ways to handle these problems. Either you get bogged down, sit down and say, oh God. Or you can turn down and say, okay, let's get cracking. I've got my entire team out here. And I'll tell you, there were days, and I'm sure all my general managers are here with me, when the recession hit on the first day, I remember we all went and stood and looked at our stockyard. I don't know whether you know, we sell a car called the Audi R8, and this retails at between 400,000 and 700,000 dirhams a piece. Yeah. I had 87 of them standing in the yard.
Okay.
And that, believe me, was a shock. And we sat down and said, how the heck are we going to sell these cars? And who's going to buy it? Yeah. There's a recession on, But we said, we do it one day at a time. But we will. We did. And though our figures were down for that particular year, right through the recession or wherever, we never made a loss. We never went into the red. And so coming back to your question, the thing is, you handle a problem a day at a time.
Okay. Before we go into your business and delve deeper, may I just go back to the time, because I think we'd just like to peel the onion a little bit on that. When you were 12, 13 years old, and for a couple of years you looked after your brother, you became effectively a very, very young father, because your role there was a very fatherly role. What did you actually learn there, and did that make you stronger further on in life? Because
one
these
thing
are
I learned is
defining
I had
moments.
no time to go and play, because I had to look after my brother.
Right.
The second thing I learned was, as a family, we had to stick together, because, my father's company looked after him, because all the hospital bills were paid by the company. They took really good care of him. But it was a strain that was telling on my mother. I could see. She used to go off in the morning, sit with my father was in coma for the first 6 months. So I don't know what this lady went and sat for 6 months and did.
She was probably talking to him.
I don't know, but 6 months he was in an absolute coma.
Yeah.
And she would go sit there from the morning to the evening, sit with him and pray, and then come back in the night and sit with us. And that is when I think we all learned that, life is sticking together, and we are a family of 4, I lost my father in 2003, and now we are a family of 3.
Now, moving forward, I think for a lot of people, what will resonate is your first job. And what are the things that went through before you took that first job? Because that tends to shape your life.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your first job? Because there's an interesting story behind that.
A very interesting story. In fact, I don't know whether my first chief executive is here. Is Mr. Rajaram here by any chance? There he is. He was my first chief executive.
Okay.
When you pass out from Bajaj, they have these campus interviews. Various companies come, Tata Sons, Hindustan Lever, all the blue chip companies come to interview. And in those days, everybody got placed before you left the college. You got a job. The 2 blue chip jobs were Tata Sons and Hindustan Lever. And then I applied to 2 smaller companies. One was Garware Shipping, and the other was a plastics company. I got into the final round at Hindustan Lever. And Hindustan Lever, I don't know whether you know, Bombay is right opposite Bajaj Lever House. So in the final stages, they take you into this boardroom. So you have the director of human resources, you have the director of marketing, all the various directors. And you're sitting in this huge boardroom, you have this group discussion first. And then the panel decides who are the 3 people. They select 3 people every year from Bajaj. One of the people selected was me. When they finish it, the 3 names are put on a piece of paper, and the paper is sent to the office of the chairman. Thomas was the chairman of Hindustan Lever at that time, and he had to sign off. When the paper went in, the spune came back with the paper, and he whispered something into the ear of the director of human resources. The director of human resources turned around and said, Mr. Rajaram, the chairman would like to see you. I said, wow, that's something. I didn't know that there was a glass panel. It's a one-way glass. He stands at the back of the panel and watches this entire group discussion. I walked into his room. He sat down. He looked at me and said, you really want to join Hindustan Lever, don't you? Now, that's a double-edged sword. I didn't know whether to say yes or to say no. I looked at him and said, yes, I'd be honored, sir. He said, don't bullshit me. So I was taken back. He said, I've been standing here and watching you in that glass. This company is a big, big pond. We don't like big fishes here. Here we have a culture, we have a system, and you're a guy who bucks tradition. You will not last here for 1 hour. You'll either hit somebody or you'll have a fight with one of my managers. Because you are not going to sit and conform to a 9 to 5. He said, where all have you applied? So I said, I applied to Garware Shipping, I applied to this plastics company. He said, something, you want my advice? I'll sign off today. I'd love to have you in Levers. Maybe you will do well, I don't know, but my gut impression tells me you're not going to do too well here. I would suggest you join a small company and become a big fish in a small pond, because that is your forte. I went back that evening, I sat with my friends and said, I think this man talks sense. I said, okay, I don't want to do levers. I went back to Garware Shipping and I took this job. And that's where it started. A small company, 4 ships. Sethuraman was my chief executive. We had, I think, 3 managers. Ramesh Garware, who was a young man himself, was the vice chairman of the company and our boss. And in that small environment, you get noticed. In a giant like Hindustan Lever, you get lost.
So a lot of people here are from SMEs.
Yeah.
Is that one of the advice that you would give to young people or young
Definitely.
wild stallions like you?
Well, be in an environment and do things where you can get recognized. Okay. Even in Hindustan Lever, I don't know, maybe I would have succeeded. Maybe I would have got a godfather who likes me or would have taken me forward.
Yeah.
But the bigger risk is that you might get a guy who doesn't like you.
Yes.
And then, in a company of that size, you can really get slaughtered.
But it's an amazing testimony to your longevity in terms of what you have produced, to have your first CEO from 37, 38 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. I wish my first CEO was here, and I dare say, if you guys would just reflect who your first CEO was, and if you were sitting on this chair, would he be here? I think that's an ultimate respect. So thank you very much, sir, for actually being here. Now, we'll fast forward because I want to come to Dubai and build on your learnings here. May I use the metaphor of wild stallion again? You actually did Garwari shipping and then you went into Oman. Oman's not a good place for a wild stallion. I mean, it's really boring and slow and nice and sweet people.
You'd be surprised. Okay. You'd be surprised.
Well,
when I went to Oman for the first time, electricity had barely come into the country.
There you go. That's what I meant.
Water was at a premium.
Yes.
But in an environment like that, the streets are paved with gold.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because the country needed everything. If you are willing to put up with the discomfort, if you're willing to put up with the endless night, you know how we used to sleep in the night in summer? You take a cotton mattress, soak it in water,
Yeah.
quickly fall asleep before the water evaporates.
Yeah.
Okay? Then you get up 5 hours later when it's dry, dunk it in water again and go back to sleep.
Yes.
But if you had a good idea, you had a good product, you made money.
So what I'm getting from this, and there are a lot of people, Dubai is completely not like this now. I mean,
But it was also like
it
this.
was indeed.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what I'm trying to take from this thing is having a tough life when you start out. A lot of the people living in Dubai are essentially in a very comfortable environment. There's electricity, there's water, there's everything else. It's very expensive, but would you recommend that the young entrepreneurs and the young SMEs here pack up their bags and go to Mongolia or go to a bit of Africa or somewhere where it's still virgin territory?
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. In other words, do they have the guts that you had?
They will make money quicker
Yeah.
because it's, there's more virgin. It's tougher here. But here, you got to have a separate type of resilience. You have to here get better than the best. Because everything is available. Competition is 100. You take my cars, for example. Every single manufacturer is represented here. Okay? And we are all virtually on the same road. So if he doesn't like my face, he
go
can
next door. Yeah.
zip across to the next showroom and buy a car.
Yeah.
Okay? You have to be better to keep him there. The effort is more. In Mongolia, you might probably tell him, go find another camel wherever you want,
Okay.
And I don't think he might find many camels, But here, because of that, you have to put in far more effort.
So when you when you first took the job, I think 300 or 350 cars were sold a year. Now it's closer to 10,000.
The first picture you showed of our showroom,
Yes.
my wife forced me to come to Dubai. She wanted me to come here. Anyway, we came here, we took the job, and I walked into the showroom. We had one showroom, and all my 3 brands were in that showroom. We had a workshop, one workshop, where all the 3 brands were being serviced. This served as my office, my financial controller's office, my service manager's office. It served as everything. It was dreary, dank, and totally empty. There were no cars in my workshop. So much so that when I first came in, we moved in with one 40-foot container. The 40-foot container was my workshop for 1 year and nobody even asked me to move it. That is the amount of business we had out there. The first year when we were there in 1995, we sold 335 cars. This year we will do 11,000.
Amazing. And
another interesting story. We sold 9 Porsches a year. Out of the 9, I sold 7 to duty free for their raffle.
Okay, so you actually sold 2.
And 2 to 2 unsuspecting customers. Because let me tell you, if some idiot came to me to buy a car in those days with my service, he really needed his head examined.
Okay. So your job was really, really easy then, you know, because
It's
there's only one way, it's up.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's up, absolutely.
Okay. But on a more serious note, I mean, you obviously, I think one of the things that a lot of us encounter when we come into this country is a job, and you obviously got a job with the Al Nabuda Group. The kind of person you are, and Al Nabuda family has been very, very kind and gracious to you. But at that moment in time, what were you thinking? Like, I'm going to come here, I'm going to get stuck in the bay, I'm just doing a job. Is this going to be the right thing? What went through your mind at that point in time?
I said, oh God, what have I got myself into? I went back to my wife that evening and said, hello, have you come and seen this company? You know, she said, no, you'll stick it out, it'll work. So, you know, Khalifa was in trouble because the company was deeply in trouble. You know, 335 cars, you can't make a go of anything, you know. And more important, all the staff were demotivated because they didn't know when they were going to close the company down. They knew it was inevitable. They didn't know when it was going to happen. So here comes this guy, walks in and suddenly, so what I did was I changed everything from day one. I changed their working hours. I repainted the buildings. I just made everybody feel that from the time they walk in, it's a different company.
So it was...
Okay. All the brown tables I made, they were small things, you know, but it's visual. So when a guy walks in, he's seeing it every minute, every time around. They were used to coming into work at 7, working up till 1, going back at 3, coming back at 6. I said, no, we changed the timings. We changed every little thing we could change, which didn't cost money. Because it cost money, you know, gone. The painting of the chairs and tables we did in our own workshop. But slowly, everybody bought into me. They said, you know, maybe it will change. Maybe they won't shut it down. And then 335 became 500, 500 became 600, 600 became 1,000. Then we started setting benchmarks for ourselves. We got to do 1,000 now. We got to do 2,500.
So the early stage was about shifting the culture.
Culture, yeah.
And it was about inspiration, trusting you. I mean, were those the core things you were doing, or was it leading by example?
Yeah. Leading by example, the other thing was we had a company where they paid by the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Okay? So I had 2 managers doing the same job, one white, one, let's say, an Indian. Okay? The white man was paid twice what the Indian was paid. Whatever, that was the culture of the company. Okay? Yeah. I turned around and said, look, nothing. We said we are going to define the guy's role and we're going to put a salary for what the role is worth. We're going to say this is what the job is worth. Irrespective of the color of your skin, your religious denomination, your sex, this is what you get paid. This also changed the mindset of people working for us. Okay? And slowly we became more and more a multicultural company. You know, I've got so many German managers, and I'm proud I have an Emirati who works for me as a general manager.
At the same salary?
At the same salary.
I'm just teasing.
No,
I'm serious.
It is true. Yeah. He works for me at the same salary.
Sure.
But all these people here have delivered.
Yeah.
You know, they've delivered huge results to me. They've been my backbone. Because one man can't make a company run. Ali Nabuda came to me when he was 18, Ali? 20. Okay? He came, his uncle called me and said, teach him the car business, teach him something. He came to me as a trainee salesman. Today he heads Audi as my general manager, and he sells 3,000 Audis a year and controls a turnover a shade below $1 billion dirhams.
Congratulations, Ali.